Okay, let's move away from Glen Canyon Lake Powell books now. So I still do want to do one video on something I wrote about all that. But now I have this new little case in the hallway of anthologies. And this will also be a chance for me to review what's there. Not all the anthologies in the house are here. I was thinking about leaving poetry out, but that would leave some of the most anthologies out there out of it. Does something to my brain, this one shelf being kind of off at a diagonal. Why do people get rid of this excellent little end table? This thing is great. What's up, squirrel? You here to cut the ribbon on the new case? Not much of a case, but something. You know, it's small. But I'm digging this corner right now, and it's going to keep expanding. I really want the walls to just be completely covered in this house. Not the doors, the walls. But I prefer to have things framed. But I kind of like this scrap thing I got going here. If I did that a bunch of times. I always think about Brian Wilson saying, if you just repeat a mistake in a pattern, it's not a mistake anymore. Well, here's a text we can read, an ancient fossil. Perhaps some distant ancestor of all of us. Wow. I found this around here. This whole area used to be the Western Interior Seaway. Right where I was underwater trench. Currently to Harris Canyon. But let's see what we've got here on the anthology shelf. There's 2 shelves here, really. The Art of the Personal Essay. This is like considered the canonical collection of the essay as a nonfiction form. An equivalent of the short story. Philip Lopate kind of became famous in the grad school scene, certainly with this book. The essay has come a long way since Montaigne invented it in the 1500s, from the French for attempt. What's interesting is he drew from these like commonplace books or whatever they were called, that were just collections of quotes and anecdotes and trivia, kind of wunderkammers, wonder cabinets of the written world. And now the essay is fragmenting again and becoming more modular and more experimental. It's kind of going back to its origins. Perhaps its form is in a state of eternal forming and unforming, like the universe itself, maybe. World's Great Letters, cool. I've looked at many of these on other shelves, maybe all of these. However, who cares? Nobody watches the old videos. But I often experiment with different forms in my writing. And I've always thought, I mean, I do have a couple of chapters that are letters, I think. One in particular, some lines back to someone. I had this significant letter from 20 years before, and I wrote a response to it 20 years later. That was kind of an interesting experiment. Short stories. It's got Ben Marcus in it. I bought this when I was on a Ben Marcus completist binge. Really innovative mind got into my dreams. One night I dreamt I was eating a meal off of plates that were giant protozoas. Somehow that was like amoebas. It was directly influenced by something I read in Ben Marcus, I could tell. Oh, because I was like deciphering everything. Like, what does this actually mean? What's the equivalent of this? Because in his book, The Age of Wire and String, that's what he's like. I also find this design with no visuals, just text, really kind of fascinating. This might be my favorite anthology of all time, and the one that's influenced me the most. Anti-story. Every chapter is against something, scope or character or setting or this or that convention. And it collects all these things. Robbie Gray's famous description of an escalator that probably inspired The Mezzanine by Nicholson Baker, which is just the description of a one-story escalator ride, book length. This is my currently reading list. Plus this one. I'm about a third of the way through this one. This was a textbook for a class with Amy Beater, so I think we read the whole thing. The poet Amy Beater. This is good. I love anthologies. And poetry anthologies, that's a great way to read poetry, because you can't know it all. These are like flash nonfiction, very short essays. I don't like that trend in general, but it's cool to see what you can do with very little. One of the most influential things in my writing life was having the 100-word writing group when I lived in Las Cruces in the early 2000s. Somehow we got the idea to only write 100-word exactly long pieces. And it affected my writing in a really cool way, because for a couple of years there, I was not just revising down, but revising out sometimes. And I found it was a really great way to crystallize story ideas. I ended up writing a chapter of my book that is 100 100-word long stories about that time in that group. Not stories, essays. That's the proper terminology. Here's something. It's a Salman Rushdie. Looks like there's some good stuff in here. I find the aphorisms so interesting. My book opens with a chapter 0 called Aphorisms for Shadows. And book 2 is going to close with a chapter called, Epigrams for Shadows is what that one's called. But book 2 is going to and book 1 will open with that. It's already written. I even read it live once. I considered the reading kind of a disaster. They kept grinding coffee and yelling over me at this coffee shop the whole time. The employees, welcome to the coffee house. I was like, what are we even doing here? You don't go to these things to read your work and not be heard. Yeah, but it's a working coffee house. So, I've had those jobs. You find ways to be quiet when people are reading. Oh no, someone has to wait a couple minutes for their drink, But book 2 is going to close with a chapter called Aphorisms from Shadows. And I'm going to find the most, in my opinion, quotable and relevant lines from all of the previous chapters. And then I'm going to arrange them in the most effective way. But just writing an aphorism, sitting down and writing an aphorism, I think that's the hardest kind of writing. Just say something brilliant and quotable that people will want to repeat. Just do it. I don't care how good a writer you are. That's a very hard challenge. Yeah. No one does anything uncharacteristic of who they are. Great. Before you'll change, something important must be at risk. Wait, who said this? Richard Bach. Oh, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Yeah, I'm glad I own this one. Here's another kind of famous among grad school students, MFA types. Contemporary American writers introduce stories that held them in awe. Often uses a source book, textbook for classes. What's this? Well, that's meta. Painting of the blue paint that the painting was made with. The bottle. It's not signed. Which kid made this? Anodyne, Sonora. Oh, here's a comic one. Best American Comics. I have this because it's edited by Harvey Pekar, and I love him. I think he's so great. A very interesting literary figure, documenting ordinary life. But this also has 13 Cats of My Childhood by Jesse Reclaw in it, and that is amazing. He recounts all the cats he owned as a young person, and just following that motif, you see his kind of tragic family story that revolves around those cats. What do we have here? Memory and Anthology. Where did I track this one down? I was thinking memory would be a big theme for a while I was working on the book, and I guess it is. Some Thoughts on Leanne, that essay in my book, is kind of about memory. And I love Joe Brainerd's I Remember, but Treasury of the World's Great Speeches. This is a beautiful book, but they're not all great. Selected Poems of a Dynasty. Yeah. Let's see if there's I love when paperbacks are flip. And each year the snow melts on the grave mounds of our comrades who have died here. Then each year in spring we see them turn green again. Forever along the border regions we ride. Watch the Huang Ho flowing endlessly around Heishan. Love real old stuff. The thrill of connecting with the past while you get some art. Oh, the Best American Essays. Oh, check this one out. Why do I have this? Selfish Reasons. Look who's listed as Best Notable Essays in Literary Nonfiction of 2014. Mike Smith, Place Names of 501 Filomeno. Tin House, Volume 16, Number 1. And then look at this. Since Tin House wouldn't use the name I wanted to use, Mike Smith of Albuquerque, there's no way to differentiate me from this other Mike Smith above me. My Two Emilys, Notre Dame Magazine, Winter. I've read at least one essay by that guy, and he is a good writer, but it's annoying. Anyway, it was Tin House's refusal to use that name that made me be like, I gotta just be Michael Farrell Smith. Use the old full name. This was stolen for me by a junkie from Bookstar back in the 90s. Corporate book chain. And my friend and I went over to his house and heard his incredible story. I've talked about him in other videos. Anyway, long story long. My friend Ann and I met this guy at a bookstore. We were looking at some of the same Beat Generation type stuff. He's all, I'm a professional book thief. I'll steal you whatever you want. And we were like, that's okay. But he stole us books anyway and gave them to us. He gave me this and Jack Kerouac's Selected Letters, Volume 2. My friend Ann and I went back to his house and he played Delta blues slide guitar in the style of Skip James. He was everyone in Albuquerque is either an artist or a criminal, and I'm both. I walk between both worlds. And he was a heroin addict who had done anything for his addiction. Told us horrifying stories. And he played Delta slide guitar that he had been taught by some Delta blues masters. Arl Burnside, I think it was. It was haunting. He played that. And his room was full of stolen books and music and art books and crazy counterculture stuff, and had the aura of insanity. Surprised I've never met anyone that knew him or crossed paths with him again in this city ever. He must have left. Or, I actually read this anthology. This is great. It's incredible. And the whole back half is poetics. This is some crazy poetry. Some of it really hits the spot. And if you read it all, you get into the rhythms of it and get lulled into it. It's poetry finally just for writing. This is not for the Lear in Sappho's era. It's breaking poetry away from the purely oral. And I would say this completes the essay anthology trifecta that every grad school student has to own and ideally read. Best American Essays of the Century by Joyce Carol Oates. She was a beat adjacent figure. Was dating Jack Kerouac when he got his New York Times book review of On the Road that made his career. Famously said he woke up, went to bed anonymous and woke up famous. Oh yeah, creative nonfiction. A term coined by Dinty Moore of the magazine Creative Nonfiction, and one that I feel like I've hung out with a lot. It's cool. I like what it encompasses. I feel like it should have stricter gatekeeping sometimes, because people are just writing whatever and calling it nonfiction. I don't know. I have a somewhat journalistic and historical background when it comes to my writing, and I think you should try to be scrupulous with your intent if you're writing nonfiction. That said, I love Annie Dillard, and I don't think she would agree. I think her real genre is vision. Anyway, this is a cool little anthology. I read this a long time ago. Don't remember it much. I get influenced by things, then I move on. Like the wind. Poetry in 6 dimensions. Oh, poetry anthology. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is so cool. 90s avant-garde poetics. I love that. I love a frame, put a scope around a time, a place, make it a thing. Whole genres have come from that. Look up Northern Soul. I wonder have I been filming? Shoot. Okay, and this was one of 3 textbooks for a class. So was this. I read a lot from these. But I would buy paperbacks of whatever we read in those classes also. Taught by the great Ronald Shoemaker, UNM Lit teacher, that nobody else seems to remember. And I'm like, he was the best. So I may have attended that class in an alternate dimension, I've sometimes said. My friend Lisa Barrow was in that class though too, so she was also there. But like Moliere's Tartuffe is in here. I discovered the poems of Basho, the Japanese medieval travel writer, late medieval. I had some great stuff in here. There's some amazing Arabic writing. I really found some great, anthologies are awesome. And this is a different world anthology, Norton, not Bedford, but Norton's great. So I want all the anthologies. And ideally, if I could, I would put on the shelf also this book here, Genius, A Mosaic of Writing. But it's on the writing case for now. I've got a good number of sci-fi anthologies, but I'll keep them on the sci-fi case for now. Squirrel, what do you think of the new anthology case? Do you have any feelings on it? I know it was bothering you that you had to search through the other sections for them before when you were looking for something. I understand. So anyway, that should simplify that. Now you know. Yeah, Prisma, you're good with it, right? Maybe you like to sit sometimes in that spot in the hallway. That's not an option now, but I don't know, it kind of fills the visual space up a little. It's good. And you like an anthology, right? That was a wild ride. Just rewatched that. That's crazy. My sister Leanne recommended that to me, and she died in 2001. Charlie Kaufman really influenced film. I didn't follow his career past Anomalisa, but I sure loved this and Adaptation and Eternal Sunshine in Synecdoche, New York. If you ever read The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay from Michael Chabon, the way that those comic artists freaked out and were influenced by Citizen Kane was how I felt from adaptation when I watched that. I was writing a script at the time, and I was like, wow. I gotta put these things back. So, anyway, do y'all have any favorite anthologies? How do you read anthologies? Just keep them around. Sometimes I'll keep one in my car. Did that with a collection of Chekhov stories too. You know, you never know when you just have some time to chill in your car and hang out instead of brain rotting on your phone, you know. Get out a book. I've read about someone being born in that house. That was the mining company president's home behind the mercantile at Hagen. This book talks about it. Anthologies, you know? Right. I mean, seriously. Squirrel knows. So does Prisma. These cats celebrate anthologies, and I respect them for it. They're not afraid to take an unpopular stance. Isn't that right, Squirrel? Yeah. Maybe I'll just pick one of these to start reading chapters from whenever I think about it. I'll walk by this all the time now. I have been wanting to read this one. All right. Well, somehow the weekend has ticked by. Let's not think about that yet. All right. Take care, everybody. Goodbye. I'm out. What was I going to say? I don't know. If anyone ever wanted to, like, hire a collaborator to help complete a writing project or something like that, or needs an editor or whatever, you know, hit me up. Just comment and I'll give you my email. It's michaelfarrellsmith@gmail.com. Farrell. Michael Farrell Smith @gmail.com. And yeah, we could, like, I don't know, hire me or something. I need some money. Where's the Medici family? I need your sponsorship. Or if people wanted to, like, PayPal me $50, I would put together a box of books around what you've said your interests are and send it to you. Anyway, I just am a greedy person, and I need money for frivolous things. No, that's not true, I hope. I'm just putting that out there to existence, you know. I don't care. Just watch the videos. You don't have to, yeah. Next, I think we'll look at some nonfiction over there, that end shelf. Back to some more normal, relatable, general stuff. Away from specifics. All right. Take care, folks.